Hello and welcome to Gefet in the Daf. I'm Yael Shimoni from Yeshivat Risha, bringing to you together with Adran, learning of Rashi and Tosfot, before we get to Chag Matan Torah. Now, on Chag Matan Torah Shavuot, you will be learning Daf Tzadi, and today we will be learning a Tosfot in Daf Pechet that will enlighten the learning of Shavuot and help you see that even though you're going to read something that doesn't have anything very clear to do with Matan Torah, the Tosfot in Daf Pechet shows you that this sugya has everything to do with Matan Torah, with what is Torah Shebichtav, what is Torah Shebe'al Peh, and what is the relationship between these two Torah that we were given together in Har Sinai. So I'm very excited to learn with you Gefet that deals with Daf Pei Zayin, Daf Pechet, and Daf Tzadi, and is helping us getting near to Matan Torah, the day of giving two Torah, Torah Shebichtav and Torah Shebe'al Peh. So let's begin with Daf Pei Zayin, and we are starting a new parak. And here we will ask in our Tosfot, when do Torah Shebe'al Peh has power to change and maybe even tear, be all care of things midoraita. So bear with me. We'll begin with the Mishnah, Gemara, Rashi, and then the boom will come with Tosfot, of course. So we're starting in the Mishnah, Daf Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. Haisha shalach bala lemedinat hayam. This parak will be dealing with aginut, very, very important parak. And here we're starting with a very important statement. Says the Mishnah that a woman who her husband has left her to go to Medinat Hayam, he is not divorcing her, he's going abroad. And then people came up to her and told her that he died. And then she marries. Afterwards, he comes back. The dead man comes back alive. Shai Agnon wrote a story about this. This is a very tragic situation. Why? Because she's married and maybe she has children, and then look what happens. Says the Mishnah, תצא מזה ומזה, צריכה גט מזה ומזה, אין לה כתובה, אין לה פירות, אין לה מזונות, אין לה בלעות, ואם נטלה תחזיר, והוולד ממזר. This is a catastrophe, a halachic catastrophe. She's losing all of her rights from the divorce and from the new marriage, and if she has children, these children are mamzerim. The end of the Mishnah says, if she gets married according to Beit Din, תצא ופטורה מן הקורבן. She's not married according to Beit Din, תצא וחייבת קורבן. יפה כוח בית דין שפטרה מן הקורבן, הורה בית דין להינשא, והלכה וקלקלה חייבת קורבן שלא יתרוה אלא להינשא. The Gemara looks at the end of the Mishnah and says a very important statement. Says the Gemara, מדקתני סיפא נישאת שלא ברשות מותרת לחזור לו, שלא ברשות בית דין אלא בעד דין, נכלל דרישא ברשות בית דין ובעד אחד. Says the Gemara, I'm being medayek in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that if she gets married not bereshut, how can you get married not bereshut? Says the Gemara, it's because the end of the Mishnah is talking about a situation not bereshut beit din, because there were two Eidim ksherim. She got married because two Eidim told her and maybe lied or were mistaken that the husband died. So what are we talking about in the Reisha? Says the Gemara. Oh, the Reisha. Why do we need a beit din? Because there's only one Eid. We learn from this Mishnah that a beit din can be matir a woman, even if they're not two Eidim, even if it's only one Eid. Says the Gemara, Alma edechad ne'eman. We learn from this Mishnah that an Eid that is one is kasher to be matir eshet ish le'alma if he tells that the husband died. Continues the Gemara and says, v'tznan nami. We have a braita that says, uchzaku liot mesiim ed mipi ed, v'isha mipi isha, v'isha mipi eved, v'mipi shivcha. Alma edechad ne'eman. It's not only this Mishnah, we have another braita that tells us that you let a woman marry even if it's just Ed Echad, even if it's Ed Mipi Ed, even if the Edim are women. What happened to Hilchot Eis? Where did they evaporate? Continues the Gemara and says, ותנא נמי, עד אחד אומר אכלת חלב, והוא אומר לא אכלתי פטור. תמא דאמר לא אכלתי, האיש תיק מהמן, עלמא עד אחד מהמן מדאורייתא. Says the Gemara, this is not the only place where we know that Ed Echad works. Ed Echad is Ne'eman B'Yisurim. Also, women are Ne'emanim B'Yisurim. Maybe what we have here is that Eshet Ish is Yisurim, and Edim, Ed Echad, is Ne'eman B'Yisurim, Midoraita. So that's why Ed Echad here can also be Ne'eman. Continues the Gemara in Daf Pei Chet Amud Bet and says, no, you cannot learn that Ed Echad is Ne'eman Mideoraita in Edut Isha. Why? Because there is a very big difference between regular Isurim to Isur Erva of Eshet Ish. Why? מדמי, says the Gemara, הטעם לא יתחזק איסור אחר, יתחזק איסור עד אשת איש, ואין דבר שבערווה פחות משניים. There are two differences. One, here we have יתחזק איסור. What do we mean יתחזק איסור? How do we know this woman is married? Because there were Eidim in her marriage. So these are Eidim who know that this woman is married. So this is a very strong Isur. The Isur is known by Eidim. Two, this is Isur of Davar Shebe'erva, and Davar Shebe'erva Pachot Mishtayim. Even if Ed Echad is Ne'eman B'Isurim and other Isurim, it is not true relevant to the Erva of Eshet Ish. So, continues the Gemara in Daf Pei Chet, how do we know? Why is an Ed Echad kasher for Edut Isha to say that the husband died? Ki gufan minalan. אמר רבי זיירא, תחומר שהחמרת עליה בסופה הקלת עליה בתחילה, לא לחמיר ולא להקל זה גמרא, משום עיגונה הקלו ברבנן. This is a very interesting passage, and the Rishonim had a lot of trouble understanding what's written here. Because Rabbi Zera says, I'll tell you why this works. Why is an Edechad Ne'eman? Because a woman knows that there's a kula here, but there's a very big chumrah if the husband comes back alive. So because there's a chumrah at the end, there's a kula in the beginning. Ask the Gemara, what kind of answer is this? We won't do a kula, we won't do a chumrah. We won't get an Edechad, and she won't get this big nasot that she has. Says the Gemara, no, we do the kula and then we do the chumrah. Why? Mishum ikuna iguna ekelu bar rabanan. So, bottom line, what's the answer? How can you take Isur Eshet Ish that you need 2 Eidim to be matirid? How come here Edechad is enough? Is it the Raita? Is it the Rabbanan? And if it's the Raita or Rabbanan, how did this happen? What's the magic that turned 2 Eidim into 1? So let's begin with Rashi. Rashi has his answer, and it's Rashi here, and also Rashi in Masachet Shabbos, Daf Kuf Mem Hey. Says Rashi, מה זה חומר שהחמרת בסופה? הקלת בתחילתה? Says Rashi, a woman that knows that this is going to be so hard if he comes back alive, חוששת שמא תתקלקל, ולא מנצבה עד דבד כשפיר. Says Rashi, the woman here will go to the most extent to know this is the truth. She will not marry lightly. She will go into very, very large expenses. So that's why this is truth, even though it's 1 aid. Okay, that's Rashi's explanation here, but it's not enough. Even if we think it's the truth, still there's a halachic problem. Halachic, you need 2 Eidim. How do we overcome the need of 2 Eidim? So Rashi in Masachet Shabbos says, why is 1 aid kasher לעדות אישה? דהקלו ברבנן משום עיגונה, וכל המקדש, הדעתא דרבנן מקדש, והפקיענו רבנן לקדושה מיני. Rashi there is quoting a term that we will meet in Daf Tzadi. And this term says that when men and women marry halachically, they say, Kedat Moshe b'Yisrael, which means they're marrying according to the sages. They're marrying according to Rabbanan. And since they gave the power of the marriage to Rabbanan, if Rabbanan thinks there's a problem, Rabbanan will go back and say that the marriage never existed. Afkiinu Rabbanan ekdusha minei. So says Rashi, this is how this works. When an Eid Echad comes, we think it's the truth, but how do we overcome the halach problem? Chachamim are mafking the kiddushin of this couple. This Rashi is not easy. Because if Kiyinu means that according to the laws of Chachamim, these people were never married. So if that's the truth, why are we doing all these terrible chumrot in the end? And another question for Rashi, this term does not exist here in the sugya. Here in the sugya it says, Mishum ikuna ekelu berabanan. Rashi here adds the term of Afkinu, which is not written here at all. So these questions might be the reason why Tosfot gave a different answer. So first we'll look at what Tosfot says, and then we'll see that the Ritva really dealt with these questions that we brought up now. Okay, so let's just sum up Rashi. According to Rashi, it's a din de Rabbanan, and Rabbanan are using their power of Afki'inu in order to allow Ed Echad and Ripi Ed and Isha to be matir. This woman is not really matiring her, it's really doing Afki'inu to their marriage. Tosfot here is a small Tosfot, very, very famous, and he's going to say something that will be mind-blowing. So let's read the Tosfot carefully and get deep into him as far as we can, of course, in this Gefet. So, says the Tosfot, same passage that Rashi is dealing with. נראה לרי, דלית לה למימר אנן צד ידידי כאומן צבא ונאמן עד אחד בכך מן התורה. אלא מתקנת רחמים הוא נאמן. Up till now, Tosfot is exactly like Rashi, he's saying it's the Rabbana. But will the Ri say Afki'inu? No. Let's read what the Ri says. ואין זה עקירת דבר מן התורה. כיוון שדומה הדבר הגון להאמין, כמו שהפרש לכמובן בפרקים, שבדבר שיש קצת טעם ושמח, לא חשיב עוקר דבר מן התורה. Says the Ri, sometimes חכמים, the Torah שבעל פה, can be עוקר דבר מן התורה. When there's קצת טעם ושמח. When there's a good reason. Chachamim can go against the Torah. And it's not considered going against. It's not considered problematic. This is part of what Chachamim can do. This is very, very far-fetched, what the Tosfot is saying. And what I want to state now is that Tosfot is not saying this, the Ri is not saying this, only when we're dealing with Aginut. We know that Aginut is a place that Chachamim went into great extent to be maker. But this idea that Chachamim can change things, can be oker things, because there's a good reason, we see also in other places. Tosfot in Daf Tet Zayin in Masachet Brachot says the same thing on something that has nothing to do with Iguna. It's about Birkat Hamazon. Let's look and see. In Bavli, Masachet Brachot Daf Tet Zayin, the Gemara talks about po'alim, people who work for other people, and say that they have to shorten their prayers and their barachos. Says a braita there, הפועלים שהיו עוסקים מלאכה אצל בעל הבית, קוראים קריאת שמע ומתפללים ואוכלים פיתן ואין מברכים לפניה, אבל מברכים לאחריה השתיים. כיצד? ברכה ראשונה כתיקונה, שנייה בברכת הארץ, וכוללים בני ירושלים בברכת הארץ. This braita is surprising. One thing to say, the Chachamim can be poter, the poalim from bracha rishona, which is the Rabbanan. But how can Chachamim take a bracha d'oraita, Birkat Hamazon, which has 3 brachot, and turn it into 2? That's the question that Tosfot asks, and Tosfot has an answer. אף על גב דמדאורייתא הם, יש כוח ביד חכמים לעקור דבר מן התורה, הואיל וטרודין במלאכת בעל הבית. So you see, this idea that Chachamim have the power, if they have a good reason, to be oker דבר מן התורה, it's not only in Aguna, it's also in brachos. Birkat Hamazon. So this is an idea that the Tosfot is building here that it has nothing to do with this specific situation. Rashi gave an answer that is dealing only with Kiddushin. But Tosfot is giving here a law that applies to the entire Torah and of course to the entire Shas. So this machloket between Rashi and Tosfot, we have to understand. First, we understand because what Tosfot is saying is very far-fetched. But we had questions on Rashi. How come Rashi is bringing Afki'inu where it's not written? So it is written actually, but not in this daf. It's written in a few dafim further. It's going to be written in the daf that you're supposed to learn on Shavuot, daf tzadi. There, the daf is talking about bitula get. Let's read the Gemara and see where this idea, this term of Afki'inu is written here. תשמע, ביטלו מבוטל דברי רבי, רבן שמעון בן גמליאל אומר, אינו יכול לו לבטלו, ולא להוסיף אצלו, אם כן מה כוח בדין יפה. והאחד דמדאורייתא בטל גט, ומשום כוח בדין, כאשר אינן אשת איש לעלמא, מאן דמקדש, הדתא דרבנן מקדש, והפקיעינו רבנן לקידושין. What's written here? Okay, this is a sophisticated situation. I'll try to sum it up quickly for you. When a man gives a get to a woman, he has to have kavana and want this get to be megarish. Now, what happens if he sends the get b'shaliach? Okay, he gave the get to somebody, and in the meantime, he decides that no, he doesn't want to be megarish his wife. So he can be mevatel the get. he can say in front of 2 or 3 people, I do not want this get. And then what happens? A woman is getting a get. It looks like a kosher get, but in truth, it's a pasul get because it's a mevutal get. So what do we do in such a situation? Rabbi says, well, there's nothing you can do. If the man did this thing, which is very problematic, it's a very bad thing to do because he's creating a woman that's actually very, very confused, and maybe there will be men zayim, maybe she'll be a guna. What can you do, says Rabbi? Bitlo mevutal. Rashbag says no. We don't want this. Beit Din will not let him, and even if he says that he doesn't want, this get is still a kasher get. Says the Gemara. I don't understand. The right of this get is batel. How can Rashbag say that because we want a strength of Beit Din, it's still a kasher get? Answers the Gemara. I'll tell you how Rashbag says it. If the man is being mevatel the get, this woman is mutar. Why? Because she was never married. How can that be? Because Chachamim have the power to annihilate the marriage, because anybody who gets married, it's on their deah. So now we understand what Rashi quoted in Masechet Shabbos. Rashi knows that when we have other problems to be matir ish le'alma, we have this way to do. We can use afkiinu. So that's why Rashi is putting in afkiinu in daf pei tet, because he's actually quoting what will be coming soon in daf tzadi. So this looks like a very good proof to Rashi, because we have a way to be matir ish le'alma. Why does the Tosfot not go with Rashi? How come the Tosfot is not quoting daf tzadi and giving this whole different approach? The Chachamim can be oker davar min Torah b'kum ve'aseh. So let's read the Ritva, and he'll give us a deeper insight, and we'll see that what we thought is actually a chizuk for Rashi can be seen also as a kushiyah on Rashi. So says the Ritva. First, he quotes the sugya, and he asks the question, and he says, how can it be that Beit Din are doing it? You cannot be oker davar min Torah b'kum ve'aseh. Says the Ritva, I'll quote Rashi, Yesh mefarshim dafkinu Rabbanan lekidushay minei. And then the Ritva says, Velo mechubar leRabbeinu Zal. My Rav did not like Rashi. He did not like this answer. Why? Because, says the Ritva, this answer is already given in Daf Tzadi. And actually, it's written only in 5 places in Shas. So the Gemara knows when to say afkiinu. And here in Daf Pechet, it did not say afkiinu. It said something else. It says, kula biglal agunot. So how can Rashi say that this is also afkinu? Afkinu is only there when it is written that it is there. And this is how we see the Daf Tzadi that we thought it was a chizuk for Rashi. Actually, in the eyes of the Rav of the Ritva, is being a kushiyah on Rashi. So what's the right answer according to the Rav of the Ritva? The Ritva's Rav does not go to the extent of Tosfot, does not say that Chachamim have a power to be oker davar min Torah here and in other places, but the Ritva's Rav has an answer that has to do only with Kiddushin and only with Eidut. Says the Ritva the following, Yesh lomar, וכימנהו לרבנן דמילתא דאבידא לגלויה שכמת עליה בסופה, ודאי קושטא כמעסיד, וכדאי כמינצבה בדין מינצבה, ואנן צעדי במילתא. ופרסום כזה נחשב בכל מקום כעדות גמורה, ואפילו מדאורייתא. והכתוב מסרו לחכמים, לדעת איזה הוא דבר מפורסם, וניכר דברי אמת שיהיה חשוב כעדות, וזה כפתור ופרח. What's the Ritva's answer? He says, actually in Edus, it's true that you need 2 Edim. But the Torah itself agrees that when something is known to everyone, it is also kasher, mideoraita. But the Torah said, who will decide when is something known to everyone? We're giving this power to Chachamim. And Chachamim decided to give this power here in this situation because the woman is taking care to make sure that this is the truth. So let's sum up the 3 different approaches that we saw on how to read the sugya. And again, we'll highlight the Tosfot that is saying things that are very interesting as far as Torah shebichtav, Torah shebe'al peh goes, b'chvod matan Torah. So the question that we had is, how come we're accepting edus, which are puzzle in all of the Torah, here dafka in an erev chamura av eshet ish to be matir le'alma? How could that be? Rashi said it's because we use afkinu and it's a din rabbanan. Tosfot said no. It is a din rabbanan, but chachamim have the power to be okad davar min Torah b'kum ve'aseh if they have ktsat ta'am musmach. And it's not only here; it's in all of the Torah. And you can see it in other places as well. The Ritva says no. Rashi I don't like because Afkinu is not really here. Tosfot, he doesn't say anything in the Tosfot's area. He says in Hilchas Eidus, the Torah itself agrees that when something is known to all, it is also true. But it said, Chachamim, you decide, Misarana Katuv Chachamim, when is it true? This idea of Misarana Katuv Chachamim, we had other Gefatot learning about this. This is another place here in the Ritva. But even though the Ritva here is exciting, I think that the Tosfot here is very, very exciting. To say that Chachamim have the power to be Oker Devar Min Torah because maybe Torah Shebechtav and Torah Shebe'al Peh came down together. We were given two Torah in Har Sinai. And the relationship between them, according to the Tosfot, is not a relationship of something that's separated. But Chachamim can actually change things in the Torah if they have a katzat, tam v'smach. So I hope you enjoyed learning this famous Tosfot, getting prepared to Daf Tzadi. And I wish you a lot of strength and happiness in your learning Torah and finishing the Masechta Yevamot in this last parak, which is highly exciting and highly interesting, dealing with Agunot. So take care and Chag Sameach, and B'ezrat Hashem, we'll meet again to learn together next week.